You're watching Moving Pictures. Welcome to the Transformcast, an index show of comics starring the Transformers, from the Marvel Age through to IDW. I'm Andrew, the one who knows his energon from his nuclear, and this is Simon.
And I don't. I'm the Sam Witwicky to Andrew's Optimus Prime, at least in theory. We'll see.
We'll start off the show with issue 1 of Marvel's Transformers from 1984. But first, if you're unfamiliar with that series, say you started with Dreamwave or the more recent IDW comics, which are quite enjoyable. Some background. Hasbro approached Marvel with an idea for the Transformers after their successful G.I. Joe relaunch. Hasbro had gotten Marvel to create some comics based on their toys, and toy sales had gone up. So, successful. So Marvel got editor-in-chief, well, I suppose he got himself really, Joe Shooter, to create a brief, and from that brief, Bob Budiansky created the characters and the startings of the mythos. The only character he didn't name really is Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime was originally named by Denny O'Neil.
Was the Transformers toy line a thing before the comics then? Or did they stem from the comics?
The toys were a collection of 3 distinct lines of Japanese toys, and Hasbro had all these toys they wanted to sell in America. So they had Marvel create a comic, and Bob Budiansky create all the characters. Denny O'Neil is the one who named Optimus Prime, but everything else from his write-up was canned, basically. So all the character histories, their signature weapons, and all that were thought up by Bob Budiansky. It's all those B's, I keep tripping over it. So Hasbro had Marvel working on the comic, and from the character names and outlines of personalities, they had Sumbo create the cartoon. And of course they had the toys, and it was a 3-pronged approach. So they had all this stuff launch around about the same time to maximise sales, because that's what they did with the G.I. Joe.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now, each episode of the Transformcast will cover a story, whether it's across a single issue or multiple. That means we might cover a single US comic or multiple issues of the Marvel UK comic. You can't cover one without the other, of course. And being an index show, we'll cover the comics in publication order. For those who are new to the Marvel comics, like Simon here, Marvel UK reprinted the US comics for the British audience. But since the comics were published more often, starting at fortnightly and eventually moving to weekly, they would have quickly run out of material. The original miniseries was supposed to only last 4 issues, and they didn't know how well it would be received. But the UK office had always intended to continue making comics based on the characters, even if the US comic failed. Since the parent company owned the license anyway, it was like printing money for the UK office. With 11 comic pages each issue, the Marvel UK office had their own writers and artists creating stories from issue 9 onwards for the 300-odd issues, which allowed Marvel US to put out more issues they could later reprint. These UK exclusive stories were designed to fit in and around the US stories. So, if a character that the US comic featured was on the moon, Marvel UK wouldn't use that character for an underwater story. Right, let's start with issue 1, titled The Transformers. Funnily enough, it came out in the US 8th of May 1984. It was printed across issues 1 and 2 of the UK comic, which came out 20th of September 1984. The cover was by Bill Sienkiewicz, and shows Optimus Prime, absolutely huge, standing across a few freeways and a bridge, whilst Gears and Laserbeak fight, and he crushes presumably Starscream. What do you think of the cover?
It's very striking. That's the initial thing. It's a very unusual illustration. It's really bold. The thing that strikes me is the kid in the background that looks an awful lot like Anakin Skywalker as well. But yeah, it's really cool art of Optimus, even though his face is a bit indistinct, but the rest of it is really good. I like it.
Yeah, Optimus looks kind of menacing. You don't know which side he's on.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's very deliberately vague.
Right, the rest of the creative team, the plot was by Bill Mantlo. The script was by Ralph Macchio. Pencils, Frank Springer. Inks, Kim DeMolder. Colors, Nelson Yomtov. Lettering, Michael Higgins and Rick Parker. And editor was Bob Budiansky.
Opening in orbit of Alpha Centauri, we learn the origins of life on Cybertron and how the two factions began warring at Megatron's behest. The mighty Decepticons rose up against the less warlike Autobots. The war is so pitched, the battle so destructive that the planet itself is shaken out of its orbit and sent hurtling off into the stars. After millennia of fighting, the Autobots discover that Cybertron was heading for an asteroid belt. They construct a ship, the Ark, to rocket a select number of warriors out to the belt to clear a way through for their Saturn-sized planet. Led by Optimus Prime, they successfully clear a gap measuring at least 58,232 kilometers wide, but are attacked by the Decepticons, who had created their own craft. As a last resort, Optimus sends the Ark hurtling down to crash into the third planet of the system they were passing through, disabling everyone aboard for millions of years.
Right, the first half of the first issue. Thank you very much for reading that. What are your opinions on the story so far?
Well, the one thing that I was quite surprised about, because my knowledge of Transformers is mostly from memories of the cartoon series, so it's the thing that struck me reading the initial pages of the comic was how much more detail they actually went into on the origins of the Autobots and the Decepticons themselves. It's like the actual city-state that they came from and things. It's a lot more detailed than I was expecting.
Yeah, that's true. The cartoon is pretty much just the main cast. You don't see any of the genericons. Like on the front, you just see random bots. The first page, you just see random bots wandering around.
Yeah, you never really got a sense for like the general populace, if you like. That's the big thing that struck me.
Yeah, it's to say it's starting off an entire universe. I think it does a pretty good job. I did like the Saturn-sized planet. Eventually, they do retcon that as it's smaller. I think they in later issues they say it's just bigger than Earth's moon. But the gap that the Autobots had to clear through the asteroid belts just so big.
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting. I didn't realise that they retconned that later. That's because it is a rather large hole to make if it's Saturn size.
Well, it has to be big because the initial assault from the Decepticons. No, I can't see if it specifies that there's millions killed. I'm sure it does somewhere. Right, well, let's go through it page by page. We see Alpha Centauri and Cybertron itself. It's fairly featureless compared to what it looks like in the cartoon, what you might remember it as.
Yeah, definitely. It's very much a shiny ball, isn't it?
Well, it's metal, it should shine. And the dominant life form are the Autobots, which means that the Decepticons are a subspecies.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that because they're still quite vague with what the difference is between the Autobots and the Decepticons.
They are very vague. They do mention that the Decepticons have more technology, and it's this technology, the wonders of their technology. Sorry, I'm skipping on to the next page without telling you. The wonders of their technology bestowed upon the Decepticons the awesome ability to transform into weapons of unprecedented power.
Yeah, it's weird that that this vague technology allows them to turn into weaponry compared to the vehicles that the general Autobots can turn into.
Well, that's the thing. It's that says to me that they cannot transform originally. They evolved to transform during the war, because on page 3, there we are. Although taken by surprise and destroyed by the billions in the initial assaults, the surviving Autobots were not defenseless. Each was gifted with the ability to alter his configuration into strange unearthly vehicles. So the destroyed by the billions goes back to our Saturn-sized planet. It's gifted with the ability. Does that mean that they too were technologically, they used technology to alter themselves, or this was a natural ability?
Yeah, is it like a natural evolution in quotes, or was it something they grafted onto themselves? Yeah.
Back to page 2. I know you like Megatron's design.
I do. I love his. He's kind of wearing cool shades in the second panel, which always makes me chuckle because like I say, I picture Megatron in my head as the comic Megatron, where he's with his quite serious, stern face, and that just kind of looks really comical to me and not menacing at all.
No, they do very much look like evil aviator shades. Megatron's cannon, further down the page, is handheld.
Oh, it is, yeah. It's shoulder mounted, isn't it? In the later incarnations.
Well, it's kind of forearm mounted. The later pages in this very comic will have it shoulder mounted and forearm mounted and handheld.
It changes panel to panel.
It does. Also on something I forgot to mention about the first page. Whereas life elsewhere in the cosmos usually evolved through carbon bonding, here it was the interaction of naturally occurring gears, levers, and pulleys that miraculously brought forth sentient beings. Naturally occurring gears, levers, and pulleys.
Yes, like complex interactions with with complex things that naturally occur.
So the first life on Cybertron was just a lever that raised a naturally occurring bridge.
Yeah, it opened a gate. It was fine. There's a drawbridge as well. No, it's definitely an odd... I mean, I can kind of see the parallels that we're trying to go for, but it doesn't really work when you think about it.
Yeah, that's another thing that later gets retconned. They don't go into, from what I recall, it's been 15 years at least since I last read Transformers all the way through, so I've forgotten many things, but they do go into a bit more detail about life on Cybertron.
Yeah, it's one of the things I'm kind of interested in going forward, actually, as we go through the issues, is how things get altered. I do find it interesting that it's the Autobot race, and that's kind of the actual name of the race. I kind of had it in my head that was just kind of what the good guys decided to call themselves, rather than the actual race of people.
Yeah, again, that's something that's retconned. Their race name is Cybertronians. That's why they live on Cybertron.
Yeah, that makes more sense to me, yeah.
And the bad guys chose their name, the good guys chose their name. Back on the, which page are we on now? Flicking back and forth.
Up to 6-ish.
Okay. Alright, this is where we're introduced to Megatron as the most deadly of Cybertronians. Because in the forefront of the most devastating attacks stood the malevolent Megatron with his deadly fusion cannon. And we finally meet Optimus Prime, who turns into a photocopier with a cannon on it.
Yeah, it's a very odd vehicle, it's a very peculiar... I don't know, it's almost like... kind of got a tractor-like look to it, but it does look an awful lot like a photocopier, actually. Now, as soon as you mentioned that, I thought, yeah, it really does. A photocopier.
I know what they were going for. They were going for an unearthly vehicle, something that just you would not make that on Earth.
Yeah, it's got wheels, and it kind of looks like a vehicle, but it looks like no vehicle you've ever seen.
That's right. And in the next panel, the jet on the left looks like a jet. It's got a cockpit, but the one on the right, again, is an unearthly jet. Just got 2 huge cannons on it.
Oh yeah, I've not actually noticed that. Yeah, that's a really peculiar design.
not very aerodynamic, but then we don't know if Cybertron has air.
This is very true. It wouldn't need it if it was entirely mechanical.
Well, plus it was shaken loose from its orbit and sent hurtling through space, as you mentioned in the synopsis.
Yeah, that would kind of ruin any atmosphere.
Right, the next page is where we learn about the oncoming asteroid menace, and perhaps this is where they got the idea for Armageddon.
It could well be. We could have Transformers to blame for Armageddon. Yeah, I mean, it never specifically says either that this asteroid belt is in our solar system, but it quite clearly is once we get into the next section when they actually have to abandon ship and land on the third planet. But it's because it's at this point it's just like an indistinct asteroid belt somewhere.
Yeah, I suppose they're trying to bury the lead a bit.
Yeah.
Even though the cover explicitly shows that it's taking place on Earth.
That's true, actually, yeah.
Links.
Yeah, it totally ruins it.
But it could be a different asteroid belt, and then later they find the solid one. If we go to the next page, we find out that Ravage has spied on the Autobots, as he's designed to do, and they create their own ship to give chase to the Ark.
Yeah, Ravage is still a cool design. That's still curious that he's a cat-like creature. It's like, where did that come from? But
that's true, because we see at the start he was a cat-like transformer, and now they've just added some rocket boosters onto it so he can stealth faster.
That's right, yeah. Stealth jets.
The Autobots pulverize the spaceborne rocks and are going to sail safely past the lifeless third planet of the solar system. What they don't realize is the asteroid, the Kepler belt, goes all the way around the system. So they're going to meet it on the other side of Earth.
Yes, that's a good point. And the other thing on this page that really made me chuckle was when it initially shows the Decepticons deciding what to do, and it shows their home base on Cybertron is an stereotypical evil castle Decepticon. And it looks like something that should be in He-Man, not in Transformers.
It is Castle Skeletor, yes. An inhumanly designed Castle Skeletor. The next page we see the Ark being attacked. Strangely, the Decepticons don't appear to have attached weapons to their ship because they jump out and are firing their own weapons.
That's a good point, actually. Yes, they're actually attacking themselves. I'd not picked up on that. Yeah, it seems a strange omission.
Then they break in, and the Autobots are too weak. So on the next page, the Decepticons break in again.
Oh yeah, they breaking twice.
Yeah, because the Decepticons enter through whatever hole the Autobots were shooting their asteroids
through. Yeah, it looks
through.
like some sort of loading bay or something at the back of the ship, and then they come through the side in the next panel.
Come through this side, yeah. Prepare to resist Decepticon boarding party, like we weren't doing 5 seconds ago. And then we have but one course open to us, Prowl. My most trusted of advisors. Click. I won't tell you what the plan is. I will press this button now and plummet towards the Earth, because the Ark and its secrets must never fall into enemy hands. Question: what secrets? They only just built the ship.
Yeah, and you've never before mentioned the fact that there's secrets on the Ark. It's just
They built it for the sole purpose of going and destroying some asteroids and going back home. Why is it full of secrets?
Yes, where are you taking them, or where was the plan? That doesn't make any sense.
Before the Decepticons attacked, they did plan on returning to Cybertron, I think. Rereading it. Fellow Autobots, we have succeeded through your efforts, and soon our world will pass safely through this dangerous segment of space and travel near the lifeless third planet of this solar system before going beyond. He doesn't say that they're going back. Let us rejoice in our achievement as we return to Cybertron.
Yes, so they do plan on going back at some point.
At some point. It is full of secrets, so the Optimus presses the button, they plunge towards the planet, and kaboom, more than likely wiping out the dinosaurs.
Yeah, Transformers are to blame for the dinosaurs vanishing, landing and causing a giant volcanic eruption and covering themselves.
although it is only for 4 million years, I suppose.
What's 4 million years between friends?
Right, and that's where we stopped our synopsis.
Yeah, the one thing that already at this point is quite funny from my perspective. I mean, this is the first time I think that I've really ever read comics from this era, and it's very wordy, more wordy than what I'd expect in a comic book.
Yeah, in the mid 2000s, decompression started, whereas you'd have a lot of story packed into one issue. Writers started to spread them to 3-6 issues, so there'd be more panels of people looking pensively and action shots rather than all these word boxes.
Yeah, quite a lot of the panels are taken up with word balloons. It's quite interesting. Some are quite open, but any with speech are pretty much half word balloons.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the one where the Ark is plunging towards Earth, and if I measured that would literally be half word balloons. And yet the panel next to it is just a close-up of a button going click.
Yes. Yeah, that's the one panel-less, the one word balloon-less panel. It's the one with the sound effect. Optimus's blue hand pressing a big button.
What if someone had pressed that button by accident, like they tripped over?
There's no label on it or anything. It could say thermonuclear war, and we'd never know.
But that one button is the crash into Earth button.
Yes, very specific. It's like head to that nearest planet and crash into it, or find the nearest volcano and land in it. It's
like in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, that one button is the knee enemy in crotch button. But, would you like to carry on the synopsis?
Mount St. Hilary, Oregon, 1984. The mountain erupts and awakens the Ark. It sends a probe out to scan surrounding life forms and returns having scanned cars, trucks, jets, a gun, and a boombox that it mistakenly thinks are the dominant life forms. Its memory bank's corrupted. The Ark proceeds to rebuild Autobot and Decepticon alike. With fewer numbers, Megatron decides to leg it with his 9 followers, noting that a 10th one is missing. The Autobots get their bearings and watch some footage that the computer, Auntie, has been gathering. Hours later, 5 of the 18 head off to gather first-hand reconnaissance at a drive-in movie. Fearing the Autobots are trying to join forces with the Earthlings, the Decepticon jets attack, causing the Autobots to reveal themselves to the real Earthlings, humankind. The Decepticons are repelled, but not before injuring Bumblebee, who, a human, Buster Witwicky, overheard calling out in pain. Figuring out that this talking car is probably alive, Buster takes him home as the Autobots return to the Ark, hoping their friend escapes safely. At the Witwicky house, Buster's as-yet nameless dad hears a commotion in the garage and comes out, hoping to find his son being a mechanic instead of learning book smarts. Buster exclaims that he's not trying to fix a car, he's trying to save a life.
Right, so we have the Mount St. Hilary erupting, and not sending any lava anywhere, not having to evacuate anyone in Oregon or anything.
Yeah, fortunately it's an empty volcano.
It stubbed its toe and blew its top, and the explosion wakes up the computer aboard the Ark. Go on to the next page, we see the sensor drone fly out and start scanning things. It spots a jet that happens to be flying over, and its configuration bears a striking resemblance to Decepticon attack forms,
which clearly they'd just accidentally created, and they just happened to look like jets and planes.
Well, that was 4 million years ago. I wonder what Cybertronians look like now. On the next page, it ignores a deer and then scans a highway. And you've got to wonder where the big rig it creates Optimus from is. Oh wait, there it is on the right-hand side of the road.
It would have been more amusing if Optimus had taken the form of the coal truck there. That's
Yeah. Can you imagine the coal flying everywhere as he transforms and
Every
jumps.
time he transforms, just coal flies everywhere.
Manages to scan the boom box that the guy's holding, and I'm surprised that none of the Decepticons or Autobots got turned into that TV.
Yeah, it's like, of all the things, the boombox is really bizarre to me. It's like, that just feels really shoehorned in. The television would make a lot more sense.
Well, yeah, got to assume it scanned the tape that's in the boombox, because there's Laserbeak and Rumble to think of.
Yeah, this is true. Although the thing with tapes and things is they're not exactly mechanical things, are they? I mean, I suppose there's not in the same way, not like an electrical device. It's a bit weird.
That's true. There's no wires in cassette tapes, so why would it think that a cassette tape is part of the dominant life form on the planet? But don't think too much about that. Commencing revival procedures. I do like that there's just random parts of Transformers lying around.
It kind of reinforces the idea that there was a big kerfuffle and they're all in it together. It can't necessarily pick them apart when it puts them together again.
It would have been funnier though if Megatron woke up with Optimus Prime's legs or something. But its memory banks are damaged, but must be able to tell whose legs goes with whose torso.
It matches the colours up.
That's true in Soundwave's case, at least. I'm curious what exactly Optimus Prime's doing at the bottom of page 16.
Yeah, he's definitely having trouble standing upright. Is that some sort of new dance move that he's practicing?
Well, the ship's brain imparted the information on locale to our circuitry, so obviously it imparted breakdancing.
It looks like he's kind of either is failing at breakdancing or is attempting to limbo. I'm not quite sure.
The next page we get just a couple of word balloons.
Yeah, this is some awkward text in this next section where now they've all been reassembled. And they all take the time to explain who they are and what their ability is and why they're important.
Yeah, I do like it. I think it's nice how they managed to pick one thing they're good at and convey just how proud of it they are. Frenzy will shatter our opponent's equilibrium using high-pitched sound waves.
What about you, Soundwave? I will monitor transmissions and read out of electrical impulses to learn their plans. Even my photographic memory serves as a defensive weapon.
They're world building, but wow, we've just been resurrected. Now let's talk for 45 minutes straight.
Yeah, there are ways to illustrate their abilities without literally going into text spam for.
Yeah, for instance, Skywarp, he's proud of his teleportation power. He could have teleported.
Yeah, just show him in one panel, and then a blip or something, some sort of effect, and then having him appear behind somebody. There you go, job done.
Yeah, they should have used the fight for some of these at least.
Yeah, having it in a fight sequence would allow you to show a lot of these things off. It's like a buzzsaw. Who can pinpoint a hex nut at 20 miles with his optical sensors. It's like, just have a panel looking through his point of view, showing, like, with a scope or something.
Well, there's 10 of them, and Megatron notes that the mightiest of them is missing. That's worth bearing in mind for a future issue. That's some forward planning on the writer's part, but they decide to leg it because they don't have the upper hand. And then they transform, and Soundwave transforms and starts to fly.
Oh yes, because we all know a tape deck can fly. So
yeah, if he'd have stayed in robot mode and started flying, okay, fine. Because the Decepticons, we later learn, and in the cartoon, can't fly.
Yeah,
but Boombox, that's silly.
Also, they don't show Megatron there. What does Megatron turn into at this point? Presumably he still turns into the gun at this point.
Yes.
but it doesn't show him flying off, so...
Yeah, he turns into a gun. That might be why... Okay, the boombox can fly, but the gun, not so much. Let's just not draw him.
Yeah, the gun just completely destroys my sense of disbelief, here.
The following page, it shows 3 jets and two of the cassettes. No sign of the boombox or the gun. And then we have so many Autobots introducing themselves with their proud abilities.
Yeah, at least the ratio of text to panel isn't quite as bad, so at least you do get quite good images of the robots.
That's true.
But,
That's very true.
Yeah, there's still an awful lot of text panels in this panel.
Listening to you, Blue Streak, taxes even the endless patience of Prowl. Don't talk about yourself in third person.
Like Ironhide may be old and ornery, but his steel alloy skin hasn't been dented yet in battle, and I've got a bunch of new liquids I want to test out in my water gun.
Yes, sir. Where did he get these new liquids, and why didn't he fire them at the Decepticons in space?
Maybe they're not that kind of liquid. Perhaps we don't want to know.
No, we don't. Of course, Ironhide and Ratchet are in their toy. Their toys looked like that because the artists, well, they were just copying the toys at this point.
Yeah, I've only just noticed actually that those two are in a transformed state rather than.
Well, that is their robot state at this point.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah.
They later do get bipedal modes, which do look. They do look nicer, but the Ironhide and Ratchet toys didn't actually have her head; they just had the windscreen. So at least they give them a face.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't realise that about Ironhide.
Actually, on the next page, Ironhide does not have a head. On the Ratchet does on the previous page.
It looks like Ironhide does on that page as well, but yeah, on the following one.
Yeah, the following where he doesn't, and then
he definitely doesn't.
Not in the top panel. The second panel, it's covered by a text balloon.
The text balloon covers all sins. It's like we'll fix that in post.
What does it look like? I don't know. Stick a word balloon on it, and then they just stand there for hours as their memory receptors absorb masses of information. And whilst they're absorbing this information, not one human pops up, and they say, "Hey, what's that?"
Yeah, it's peculiar when they're watching all this traffic footage that not one of them notices, oh, hang on, there's something inside these vehicles.
And then move on to the next page, and we're introduced to our humans. Buster and his unnamed father.
Dad.
He eventually gets the name Sparkplug, but at this point, no name at all. We see what kind of relationship they have, with Dad saying, don't go to university, you need to get a job.
Yep, you need skills that actually do it for doing something, not just intellectual pursuits, basically. His dad being a mechanic.
The next page, we get an unnamed hitchhiker as the Autobots go to a movie.
Again, it's interesting that not one of them even registers that it's there, but it's kind of funny. I know the Decepticon, well, the drone, ignored the deer earlier, but it is for you'd think they would have registered after watching all that footage and then seeing one out that like it'd have at least come up in conversation.
Well, the drone can be forgiven because it's specifically looking for things made of metal, but these guys have their own optics. They didn't hear this guy screaming, and nobody's driving! Yeah.
Holy smokes, a whole slew of cars travelling at top speed and nobody's driving!
The final panel, my turret scope has locked onto some vital machine signs just over this ridge, which we find out is a drive-in movie, which looks to the Autobots to be some sort of religious ceremony, because they're all facing one direction. And not
which I do think is quite funny. That it looks like some sort of organised gathering. They take it as some sort of religious ceremony. That's quite funny.
Yeah, it is a good touch. Laserbeak's been spying on them, so the Decepticons for some reason assumed that the Autobots are going to be in an alliance with the inhabitants of Earth.
Yeah, they seem to jump to that conclusion rather quickly. It's like, why? Why so soon? You've been around just as long. It's like, you're nowhere near that, so why would you assume the Autobots are?
Well, the question is, why did they not? If this is something they feared, why did they not try and get into an alliance with the inhabitants of Earth?
Yeah, that's a very good point.
And while they've been gone, they've learned that Earth possesses abundant fuel resources. So the question there is how?
Yeah, how? Because none of this stuff would be on Cybertron with it being entirely metallic and machinery based. There's no equivalent to coal.
In 1984, there was no internet either. So, I accessed the internet and found out about nuclear power. Next page, the Autobots, Bumblebee decides to be the first person to say hello to an Earthling, which he does by crashing into a car.
He gives it a nice gentle nudge.
It's very dinged, very obviously dinged in that bottom left panel. And yet, while this person is screaming, while Buster is screaming at this car without a driver, Bumblebee still doesn't notice him.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to react in any way at all to the fact that these fleshy things are moving about and interacting with things, but no, still no response.
But we do meet Jesse and O. I don't know if the quotation marks are part of O's name, but...
Yeah, is it some sort of nickname?
Hopefully they didn't fill out the birth certificate. Okay, quotation mark O, quotation mark. There we go. His last name is Jones. O. Jones.
Oh, exclamation mark Jones to you.
Next page, the Decepticons attack and hit Bumblebee, who goes, oh, which Buster takes as a cry out in pain.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I didn't pick up that that's what he must have heard. But yeah, that's the only thing that has come out of Bumblebee, so that must be what he's responding to, where he says, oh, it sounds like he was crying out in pain.
It's a good thing that Buster was out of the car. I don't know when Jesse and O got out of the car, but the car is where that big bavoom sound effect is.
Yeah, there's definitely no sign of the car anymore. In the next panel, there's just bits. There's a
yeah. So it's his dad's car that just got blown up. Or was it his car?
I think it was his dad's.
Well, the house doesn't appear to have a. Oh yeah, it has a pickup truck. But then why was Buster not in the car originally? He walked home.
Yeah, because he says, did its brake slip so that it rolled into Dad's car? So yeah, it is his dad's.
So his dad won't be happy. Yeah, but the car kind of blew up. But then the Autobots transform. I do like that bottom left panel, which shows mid-transformation.
Yeah, that's quite. It is a nice panel. It's the first time you've really seen a the Autobots sort of mid-transformation, isn't it?
The ground is white for some reason, but it's been it was white in the top panel and then blue and then
like a weird tan brown colour and then white again. Saves on ink.
This is true. So the Autobots battle the Decepticons, and I like Gear's walloping laser beak. It's a nice action shot, because so far it's all been lasers.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah, that's the first time you see a melee attack. You see one actually lamp one. I do like the come Starscream, surely you don't fear to strike at a foe that is unable to fly, do you? Because Starscream's just tootling about in the air.
Well, depending on how fast Starscream's moving, how much of this conversation is he hearing?
It'll just go, come up. He's gone.
And the bottom right panel, the cliff jumper shoots Starscream. He manages to get 2 speech bubbles and a laser hit. Well, gas gun hit.
Yeah, the glass gun. The glass gas gun. That's not an easy thing to say.
Yeah, the gas coats me, making my metal brittle and breakable as glass.
Thank you for the exposition, Starscream, as you're being shot.
As the name of the weapon would suggest. Then the next panel, they're running away already. Flee, Thundercracker, fly!
Fly, you fools! It's Gandalf.
Starscream's channeling his inner Gandalf. Then we see Ravage getting chased off by... what is that? I know Hound can make holograms, but what exactly is that a hologram of?
I honestly don't know. It looks like an ocarina. We'll go with that. It's an ocarina with fins.
So an underwater ocarina.
Yeah, that's really not clear what that's supposed to be. I think it's just supposed to look like some sort of menacing projectile, but it doesn't really.
The thing is, the speech bubbles cover something. There's very clearly movement lines leading to something.
Is there a second one of those underneath the text bubble?
Perhaps that might explain why Ravage is running in the first place. And then the bottom panel, they finally realise, hey, look at those bizarre-looking objects.
Yeah, look at them all. My logic circuits have determined that the Ark was in error. So it's like, you're just one life form. Are you telling me the Ark's computer's not very good at analysis? In which case, what's the point in having it if you can figure that out quickly?
The point of having a computer on the Ark is for all those secrets. Remember?
This is true. It's just to keep those secrets safe.
When they moved upon the roadway, we saw the small beings were controlling them. So
they did notice that, but they just never thought to question it.
Basically, Autobots are idiots.
We've already established that the good guys are stupid. So.
Well, Bumblebee did decide to say hello by crashing into a car. Was that a traditional Cybertronian hello?
Yeah, that's how they normally greet each other. They crash into each other.
That's the universal greeting.
Bump violently into each other. That's how you make friends.
If you're in vehicle mode, you have to bump into them. If you're in robot mode, you have to say bar weep, granal weep, ninny bomb. On the next page, we get them transforming back to vehicle mode. Again, sticking pretty close to the toys.
Yeah, the transformation sequence across the top 4 panels is quite cool. I do like that.
Yeah, you don't see very much of Hound's, but you can see his rear, the wheel that goes onto his back. The back of his vehicle mode is just swinging into place in the third panel.
Yeah.
And then they run away from the jets who had already escaped.
But the back, just to make the escape more dramatic for a second. All while Buster's examining Bumblebee.
Yeah, he has no interest in being a mechanic, but he's got the hood open and he's looking. That's like me when something was wrong with the engine. I open up the bonnet, I look. I put the bonnet down, I go to the garage.
Yeah, it's like, it's been badly damaged. It's leaking something that looks like, but isn't, oil. It's like, how is it not like oil, but it looks like oil? It's like, you're very vague here.
No key, no ignition, no gas pedal. So what exactly did that probe scan? If it couldn't scan the inside of things, then how do the cassettes go into Soundwave?
Yes, we're starting to break the logic of the entire universe.
By analysing it, we're putting far too much thought into this children's comic designed to sell toys.
The thing with the tapes especially is really weird. It really doesn't make any sense. But yeah, like you say, it's like mechanically, it's what exactly did it scan? And it's very selective in its scanning.
I can just imagine one unfortunate Decepticon transforming into a can of beans because it's made of metal.
And it was inside a microwave. It's the same logic.
Right, next page, Bumblebee escapes while Buster's steering. Yeah, it doesn't have a gas pedal, but has a steering wheel. And Buster takes it home and decides the best way to get his father, the mechanic, to come and fix it, as he wanted, because he said, I'm no mechanic, that's Dad's field. Dad, say if I can get this bug to his garage, he'll know how to patch it up. So rather than going into the house and waking his father, he decided to just bash around in the garage until it woke his dad up.
Yeah, I'll go into the garage and just clang a lot of things together to wake him up.
Dad, I brought home this living car for you to save, but figured I wouldn't come inside to wake you up. that I'd bash around the garage until he took the hint, and he wonders why his father thinks he's wasting his time in school.
Yeah, it's like, Dad, it's not a car. And he goes, it's got wheels, boy, and fenders, headlights too. What would you call it exactly? And he goes, it's alive. And then, for some reason, the very last word balloon of the part is Bumblebee going, help me please, I'm dying. Completely out of nowhere, and he's not spoken the entire thing, but that's what he can manage to get out at the end of the comic.
Yeah, you'd have thought he'd say something to Buster while driving. We don't know exactly how far away the drive-in is. We just know later that night he was back at home, and he was told to be home by 10. So either he's late home and decided to go and fix a car, Sparkplug is not very intelligent, or he's early and his dad goes to bed very early.
Oh, we're thinking about this too. And it's just supposed to be some period of night time. It's some late night shenanigans.
The best shenanigans are late night shenanigans. Right, being the first issue, we see the first appearance of Brawn, Bluestreak, Bumblebee, Cliffjumper, Gears, Hound, Huffer, Ironhide, Jazz, Mirage, Optimus Prime, Prowl, Ratchet, Sideswipe, Sunstreaker, Trailbreaker, Windcharger, and Wheeljack for the Autobots. Buzzsaw, Frenzy, Laserbeak, Megatron, Ravage, Rumble, Soundwave, Starscream, Skywarp, and Thundercracker for the Decepticons, and Buster Witwicky, Jesse, O, and Sparkplug Witwicky for the humans. In future issues, that list will be shorter.
Yeah, and even though all those characters are introduced, it's like most of them have only been given lip service or vague. They're on the panel. They don't actually do anything or anything significant. So it's just very much, these are different varieties of vehicle.
Well, these were the first wave of Transformers, and the second wave of toys were decided upon, and the comic proved to be selling well. We'll get more characters introduced. Funnily enough, we get one character introduced before they decide to sell his toy. But that's the mysterious strongest of us all.
Oh, is that the mysterious missing Decepticon?
Yes. Got to keep some secrets from you. Keep you interested in turning up to the vodcast.
Oh, absolutely. It's the one thing that's interesting is how much panel time Bumblebee gets. I know Bumblebee was a hugely popular character and he was like really major, but he's got way more page space than any other Autobot.
Well, if you think about it, he was not popular at this point.
Well, that's true. No, he later became popular, but yeah, it's funny that he was the main focus.
Yeah, so only for the last quarter of the issue, I'd say. For up until that point.
Yeah, actually flicking through the earlier pages, it's like he wasn't really in the early segment of the comic at all.
His first appearance seems to be when they wake up, unless he's one of the uncoloured bots during the fight. But when they're discussing what they're the best at, appears to be his first appearance.
Yeah, unless, like you say, in the panels where they're just like indistinct robots, or unless he was intended to be one of those. But yeah, his first proper appearance, yeah, it's when they're explaining their abilities.
Actually, while Optimus is talking to the bot with the beard about the oncoming asteroids on Cybertron, there's a yellow and blue transformer next to Optimus. That's actually Prowl because of the shoulder cannons.
Yeah. Yes, they just changed the colouring entirely for that panel.
It might have been fixed in one of the reprints, but we're reading from the original issues to get the fullest experience, as well as the amazing Star Wars the Arcade game advert.
Yes, you can't have something from the early 80s without a cheesy Atari 2600 advert.
If you want to read this issue yourself, it was reprinted in 1985 in the Transformers 1985 Summer Special. Again in 1985 in the Transformers Collected Comics US number 1. The story begins. 1986, The Transformers The Complete Works Part 1. 1986, Die Transformers. Der Transformer #1. That was in Germany. 1987, the Transformers Comics Magazine #1. 2003, Transformers Beginnings from Titan Books. 2008, Classic Transformers Volume 1 from IDW. And 2011, the Transformers Classics Volume 1 from IDW again. Right, do you have any questions regarding this issue?
Not really. I do think it's actually a lot better than I was expecting it to be. They do a really good job of starting the mythology, and actually, even though it's like you can laugh at it in hindsight, it's quite forward thinking, some of the things they did, and they went into more detail than perhaps they needed to, which at least gives them something to flesh out later on, or at least use as jumping off points. So I was quite impressed.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, this and the cover mentions, it's the first issue in a 4-issue limited series. But because it's sold so well, they carried it on for 80 issues. Of course, in the UK, they were planning on carrying it on anyway, because it was a licensed property, and at the time, it was cheaper to produce something based on something that Marvel owned rather than find their own properties, such as the Doctor Who comics. It was like printing money, basically.
Yeah, they already had it, so they may as well use it.
Yeah. So, but in the UK, it ran for 332 issues.
No, it'll be really interesting. I'm kind of interested to see what the overlap is for stories and things as we get into future issues that deal with ones that were across both brands.
Well, one thing we're going to have to consider when we reach issue 80, will we go on to the next published comics, which were Generation 2, or will we skip ahead to the Transformers Regeneration 1, which was produced by IDW a few years ago, and basically takes the Marvel US storyline from the, issue 80.5 to 100.
Oh, so it's a literal continuation.
Yeah, but the UK comics, they went a different direction, but we'll come to that.
Yeah, we've got a fair way to go before we get to there.
All right, join us for the next episode, where we'll be covering the Transformers issue 2, Power Play. Thank you for joining me, Simon.
No worries, sir. Thanks for having me.
You've been watching Moving Pictures. Subscribe for more of our amazing content.